This is Budget Day. President Obama is promising another boost to clean energy development in the year to come. Also, Canada says the U.S. carbon target looks so good, that country is also ready to make a pledge. And Interior Secretary Ken Salazar visits the Cape Wind site, but one governor says that decision is already a done deal.
From the Energy News Center in Washington, D.C., this is the Energy Report with Susan McGinnis.
Good Monday morning. I'm Tyler Suiters in for Susan McGinnis. Thanks for joining us for this edition of the Energy Report on the first day of February 2010. The latest White House budget proposal is out this morning, and clean energy research and deployment gets another boost under the president's plan. Obama's fiscal year 2011 budget proposal says that fossil energies would be paying for that funding. White House Budget Chief Peter Orszag says that clean energy, along with education and innovation, would get more money under the administration's discretionary spending freeze, while other programs would then be cut to more deeply compensate for that. Some $6 billion would be directed to what the budget describes as clean energy technology research, development, and demonstration projects. The budget also calls for elimination of what Orszag terms, quote, fossil fuel subsidies, something that would raise $40 billion over the coming decade. Orszag indicated those are essentially the very same tax benefits President Obama wanted cut last February. However, the oil and gas industry has fought hard to stop Congress from agreeing, and Congress has the final say on this budget proposal. More details on the Obama budget will be coming out throughout the day, and we will, of course, post them for you right here on cleanskies.com as they become available. 2 days after the U.S. announced its emission goals under the Copenhagen Accord, its neighbor to the north wants to get on board as well. Canada submitted its target to the UN on Saturday, and that target is the same as the U.S. goal. That is 17% below 2005 levels by the year 2020. Canadian Environment Minister Jim Prentice says Canada wants a binding international treaty that builds on the Copenhagen framework, and also one, he says, that applies to all carbon emitters. That would include China and the U.S. Environmentalists say this target, however, actually means an increase in Canada's CO2 emissions over 1990 levels and not the 3% reduction announced back in 2006. Also, New Zealand has now signed on to the Copenhagen Accord today, pledging to cut carbon 10 to 20% below 1990 levels by the year 2020. Venezuelan President Hugo Chavez this morning says he is considering creating a $1 billion fund to boost electricity production. His nation, as we've reported, is struggling right now with energy shortages. And back in December, Venezuela started rationing both electricity and water. The government warned of a widespread collapse of the grid in Venezuela if the water levels behind the Guri Dam fall to critical lows. That is the dam that supplies more than 70% of Venezuela's electricity. That country is enduring severe drought right now as Pacific Ocean currents have changed weather patterns, all part of the El Nino phenomenon. But critics accuse Chavez of failing to invest enough money in electrical projects to meet his country's growing demand. The International Monetary Fund now has plans to help poorer countries fight the impacts of climate change. IMF head Dominique Strauss-Kahn told leaders at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland over the weekend that IMF will put $100 billion a year into a green fund. Because developing countries don't have the money necessarily to meet adaptation measures, Strauss-Kahn said IMF will help find innovative ways to help find financing. He said, quote, "The new growth model will be low carbon." Details on how the fund will be financed should come out sometime later today. The largest U.S. nuclear generator is now joining the largest clean coal project. Exelon says it will join the FutureGen Alliance, an international effort to build a commercial-scale coal plant to test carbon capture and storage technologies. Exelon CEO John Rowe says that coal plays an important role in energy supply, and it's critical to explore promising technologies to reduce harmful emissions. The Alliance plans to build the FutureGen plant in Illinois. You see some drawings of the planned facility here. Illinois is also home to Exelon's headquarters. Back in 2008, after the Alliance chose Illinois over Texas, as we've reported, the Bush administration cut funding, saying the FutureGen project would cost too much money. And U.S. utility partners American Electric Power and Southern Company dropped out of the project. The Obama administration may revive the FutureGen Alliance, but the project had to get utility partners on board first. Interior Secretary Ken Salazar will visit the proposed site of the Cape Wind project tomorrow. He'll tour the planned sites for wind turbines on the Nantucket Sound and then visit with tribal officials from that region who are opposing this plan. Now, Secretary Salazar has promised to rule by sometime in April on whether this massive offshore wind project could go forward. But to hear Massachusetts Governor Deval Patrick tell it, Cape Wind may already be a done deal. The governor told representatives from major energy and construction firms last week he expects federal approval sometime in the next few weeks. The governor's assurance comes despite strong opposition to the project from other federal officials, including Republican Senator-elect Scott Brown and also the man he is replacing in Congress, Democrat Paul Kirk. Their predecessor, longtime Senator Ted Kennedy, was a very vocal opponent of the Cape Wind project. Spanish company GA Solar is now investing $1 billion in New Mexico. That money will develop a 300-megawatt photovoltaic plant in the state. GA Solar will build about 100 miles east of Albuquerque. The company plans to complete this project by 2014. This, by the way, is the third green economy project announced this month alone by New Mexico Governor Bill Richardson. Others include wind tower manufacturer Johnson Plate and Towers plans to construct a plant in Santa Teresa, and also green building products manufacturer CD2 Enterprises is moving to the Gallup, New Mexico area. And New York this morning has new solar plans of its own. Governor David Paterson announced plans to install up to 100 megawatts of photovoltaic systems all across the state. These would use roof-mounted and ground solar arrays. The governor also says the so-called 45 by 15 program is designed to get 45% of New York's energy through renewable resources by the year 2015 and, in turn, reduce GHG emissions by roughly 45,000 tons each year. Well, as we kick off the work week here in Washington, here's a quick look at the events scheduled around the Beltway for today, and they are all about the budget. First of all, 12:30 p.m. Eastern, Energy Secretary Stephen Chu will hold a briefing regarding the DOE's 2011 proposed budget. And then at 2 o'clock this afternoon, EPA Administrator Lisa Jackson is holding a conference call on a very similar topic, the 2011 budget proposal and the effects on EPA. Again, that gets underway at 2 o'clock. And that is this Monday morning edition of the Energy Report. Thanks for joining us here in the Energy News Center. If you have any suggestions or comments about our programming here on Clean Skies News, we'd like to hear from you. And you can reach our team anytime at this address. It's contact@cleanskies.com. And a reminder for you, you can follow us anytime as well on Twitter and Facebook. I'm Tyler Souters. We're glad you're with us. You're watching Clean Skies News.